Welcome to Young at Harp. This is episode number 199, Presence. What is it? How do we connect with it? And what happens and what's there when we're present? I'm Kathleen Wiley, a Jungian Psychoanalyst in North Carolina, and I am here with Deborah Henson-Conant, who is a composer, performer, and educator, a mentor, all around creative. And we both play the harp, and that's why we call this Young at Harp. And we come together almost weekly, although we've had a break for the holidays, for those of you who do follow us live, to explore a question. We start not with answers or even knowing how or where we're going to go, so there's no script, but we start with a question that feels pertinent to what's going on and happening in our lives, and hopefully it will be pertinent to you. And if you're joining us live, we invite you to join into the conversation through the chat feature of whatever platform you are watching us on. If everything works right and the technology gods are in our favor, we will see your comment, and that way you will be able to enrich our dialogue and share your presence. So, DHC, do you want to start by having some thoughts about presence?
Yes. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, I've been on a lot of podcasts lately and been interviewed a lot. And I realized that in so many of these, the differentiator each week is the person who's being interviewed, the person who's coming in. And I realized that in our conversation, the differentiator is the question that we meet 15 minutes early, and what are we dealing with in our lives, and we come up with a question. And the differentiator is also the people who come in via the chat and literally take part in the conversation. So that's part of it. And then I was also thinking about what's happening in my life right now in the three realms, which is as a composer, as a performer, and as a publisher. As a composer and performer. Composing and publishing is the same thing, and then also as a mentor and a teacher. So I'm just going to go to something that happened yesterday, which is I had gone out for a run. I knew it was going to be really cold the next couple of days, so I wanted to get my run in, and I came to a Q&A session for a project I'm doing right now, which is called Vision Music. And for people who are interested in taking part in this is a 5-day challenge. And there's still several days you can still do the whole thing. And you can go to hipharp.com/challenge to find out about it. That's hip as in cool, harp as in the instrument.com/challenge to find out about it. And I had come in and I was, rosy cheeked, and I was breathing hard. And then I started showing everybody the music that we're working on. And the music is called Vision Music. And what's on the page for the Vision Music, there's 5 different movements. What's on the page for the first one are these notes. There's that, and then there's this. That's it. That's the whole music. And what one does it feels to me that I'm spinning off, but all I'm thinking is this, is that relationship. And one of the people and I played the whole suite, there's 5 different movements, and each movement is very simple to play. In fact, I was showing you the second movement, which is something that someone who never played the harp before could play, because it's set up like a game. You play these 2 white strings with the red one in the middle, like you literally could say you play this, and then you go down and play this. And while you're playing those, you play just white strings of the harp, whatever they are, but only white strings. And you do that a couple times, and then you move down to the red and the black string. And when you do, you open up all the strings. So it's just a game. So that game would sound something like this. So now I'm back to the open strings again. And then you come back. So each movement is this, I mean, they all fit on one page. There's very, 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 very little notated music there.
Mm-hmm.
I can maybe bring it up in a minute to show people. But what somebody pointed out is that when I first got on the screen, she said, I was about to like text in and say, can you please just breathe? He said, and then I saw the music calming you down, and that calmed all of us down. And when I told you about that this morning, I said, and there's nothing on the page. Like, I mean, there's like 4 notes on the page. That's it. And you said, well, there's not nothing. There's not nothing there. What's there is presence. Now, part of why I created this suite was because this quarter we're learning the strings of passion, which are the 7 principles that take you from creative impulse to creative expression. And when that happens, you start living in a world of creative resonance. And I wanted people to have something where they weren't fussing with what are the notes and what are the something anyone at any technical level could do and experience this process of creative resonance. But then talking to you about it, it's starting to help me think about what is presence. And when I go and do a show, like I have a show on the 31st in the Boston area at the Center for Arts in Natick, and I do want to be present. I'm usually present in a different way when I'm on stage. I'm usually present in a more sort of intense way, you know, so what I'm embodying myself in a different way.
We lost the sound. The sound got really quiet.
I know this is unfortunately something that happens on this site.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything I can do about it.
Okay.
It's like it doesn't like my playing. It doesn't like it when I play loud.
Okay.
Yeah, but thank you for saying something. I think there's a gate that just shuts it off.
Yeah, now it's that your voice is back at its normal voice.
Right.
Okay.
So, but anyway, you could see, if you couldn't hear, you could at least see. And those of you who are watching, there's a very different presence, and my body is different. Everything's different. Mm-hmm. So I love that you said presence. And then I realized, okay, so you and I are both dealing with presence all the time. As a performer, I'm dealing with presence. As a coach, I'm working to help the people that I'm working with, the people in the academy or other people I'm coaching, to bring presence to what they're doing, because I'm not a harp technique teacher. Mm-hmm. I'm dealing with creativity and performance. And then as a composer, I am writing music that is all about self-expression. So the intention in the piece is to write it in such a way that the player can be present in all their persona. Mm-hmm. And so because giving that to the audience is a gift. And I think that's where the thing is. You know, I was saying there's nothing on the page. We think the music is the thing we're playing. But my teacher, Tony, would say, the thing you're doing is just the thing that keeps you occupied so the audience can see you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you have your embodiment circle. So what are they seeing? What are they feeling? What is presence? What would Jung say about that?
Well, I think that what all psychoanalytic traditions say, and I think all forms of psychology, Its presence comes from being grounded in your body. I mean, it comes from knowing what's going on inside of you and moving from that point of reference. So often, and I think this happens in music, and I think in music, it happens when people are playing music or want to play music, and you get the sheet music, and suddenly, instead of moving from a sense of self internally, your felt connection to what's there on the page, it becomes all about how do I do this thing that's on the page, or how to do this thing on the page like I've heard somebody else do it, and it all becomes out here. And then you're dissociating would be the word. You're leaving your own body. There, you aren't present to yourself in a way that you then are feeling and experiencing your relationship to the music, which the notes on the page or the suite you're offering in the vision challenge invites one into.
Can you just say that again? That last sentence. So you're.
We may have to listen to the recording.
Okay. What were you saying? I lost it right at the end. So what are you invited into?
That the notes on the page, or in the case of your vision music, the 5 suites actually are an invitation to be present to a felt experience of the music in you as you play those particular notes or chords or progressions. And as you begin then to listen, because you use that word when we were talking off camera, that you're listening for what wants to come next. It's like a conversation on the harp, the right hand and the left hand.
Right.
It's not just about each having its own mind doing what it is it thinks it should do, which becomes out there, but it is about, okay, I'm hearing something, and how am I impacted? Being present to one's own felt experience.
As you're speaking, I was thinking about one of the reasons that I teach almost everything in the academy, put the harp in the key of C, and don't worry about the levers unless that's what we're actually dealing with. And because I remember when I first started the harp as an adult, and when I switched from the concert harp to the lever harp, the coordination made it very hard for me to be present. And I've been thinking about this lately because all 3 realms of my life are just really bubbling and popping, like things are happening in each realm and people are asking me questions about each realm, and coordinating them. Sometimes I feel like, oh my God, I now have to go to that interview, and I'm going to get there and have to send this thing. And I realized that the coordination reminded me of what it was like when I started the harp. Mm-hmm. I was having, and it reminds me, okay, I'm just going to say one more thing, and then I'd like to kind of hand it over to you. It reminds me when we were learning composite meters in music school, and I just remember learning 4 against 5. Or maybe that's 3 against 4. I think that's 3 against 4. 1, 2. Right? I can't say it out loud, but because what's happening in my head is, instead of me thinking 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, that's not what's happening. I'm not actually doing 2 things at once. I've combined them, and we were given a phrase, and I'll try to make it, everything we did in music school was rude and, childish, but but this was like, eat your gosh darn spinach, eat your gosh darn spinach. So that was what we were saying. That is how we learned this complex thing, but we learned it by creating something that already had that rhythm in it that we could then, that we could coordinate towards. So as you said, you're given a piece of music, and part of the issue is there's a lot there to try to internalize. For one thing, you didn't even write it. Somebody else wrote it. It's somebody else's idea. And I think this is why I love giving something. I mean, this is it. This is that's the theme. That doesn't mean you have to stick with that theme. You can turn that theme upside down. You can make that theme wider. I mean, you can start that theme? I mean, you can do all kinds of things with it, but the only thing you have to remember, and it's fine if you forget it, is like that, and then that's going to go down. And if you, and in fact, I did forget it, because apparently when I originally wrote this, it wasn't that at all. It was this. It was like, and I forgot it and came back to it and got something that I liked even better. So it's a unifying idea. It's music, but you don't have to do it right. Like, it works whether you're doing what's there or not there, because it allows you to be present. Now, how is that? What is that? It's something that lets us be present, but we don't have to do it right. We don't have to do it a certain way.
You know, I'm having a totally unrelated reverie, so
Okay,
I'm going to be
great.
present.
All right, okay, perfect. What's your reverie?
Suddenly, I'm having this realization that when you play on camera, you put your harp on your left shoulder.
No,
it's the mirroring effect of the
Yes.
camera. It's the weirdest thing. I just suddenly, my sense perception. Now, this is an interesting unconscious manifestation of what does it mean to be present, to truly be present. And, you know, so suddenly my sense perceptions are just trying to make sense of what my visual eyes are seeing that you're going to tell me is an illusion.
Okay, wait a second. Okay, just a second. Okay, now.
Oh, interesting. Oh, look at that. It's a trick. It's an illusion.
Actually, no. What I just did is I turned the entire universe around. But yeah, it is. And, you know, I'm glad you said something, because I never realized that I was backwards.
Okay.
All right. So from now on, now I can be playing with the harp on my, and I'm sure that many people will appreciate that. Seriously.
Well, you know, so you're talking about presence and what does present mean and what is presence. And I'm suddenly having this sensory awareness that's coming through my physical eyes, something I have seen now for almost 200 episodes. By the way, next week's 200, so join us. Maybe we'll pop champagne in our separate locations. I don't know. We'll stick with tea. We'll stick with spicy tea.
I'm going with something bubbly. I don't care what.
Anyway,
kombucha, but I'll go for it.
But I'm suddenly having this sensory perception. So presence. I think when we talk about presence, we have to remember that the entirety of our being includes a physical body, an emotional body, a mental body, and an energetic or spiritual body. And there's one level of presence that comes through us, our physical senses, actually seeing with the eye, feeling with the hand, smelling. And that brings us present to the outer world and physical realities. And then there is an emotional presence, which has to do with the felt sense and the affect that arises with our sensation. And then there's a mental presence where we are aware both of our heart's desires and the images that our intellect and our mind and the thoughts that are coming up in response to the emotions and the sensations of our body. And then there's the spiritual, the energetic, which is the point of, for me, the point of connection to source. In Jungian language, we would say the connection to the larger self, or what Neumann called the ego self axis, this point of conscious awareness of communication between our ego and who we think we are, and the larger self, who is who we really are, and the larger self is always far more unconscious. So there are different levels of awareness and different dimensions of presence. And for me, what you're describing happening for you yesterday in the Q&A when you started playing the vision music is that all of you came together in one place. That it wasn't just now you were intellectually leading, doing the Q&A, the thing that was next on your schedule. It wasn't that you were disconnected and physically trying to recover from. Suddenly in that moment, all four of those bodies, so to speak, it's like the energy all coalesced at one point, where you were in touch with the unified self that is really all of our true natures. That level of presence is very different than the level of presence when you're there physically, but you're panting and you're still trying to recover, and you're a little bit dissociated from your own emotional feeling because of the incongruence between the experience of being outside running and now being back in your studio on camera with students with somewhat of an agenda. Am I making sense here?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things going on in my head, including now I'm obsessed with the fact that you're not in the center of your screen. Although I also like it. Having gone to the museum last night, I actually appreciate it, but I'm aware that we get distracted by these things. And
it's interesting because I'm trying to stay out of this little light coming in around my blinds I can't get rid of. But I want to say your ability to say that to me, or my ability to say, I'm noticing your heart's on your left shoulder. We have to be able to bring in our physical reality if we're truly going to be present in these other ways.
Okay, but here, and I struggle from perfectionism. And so do we, like, I appreciate that, we both said like, oh, it's bothering, you're not this or whatever. On the other hand, one of the things that I teach is especially when in the academy, when we're looking at other people's work and, we're in a world that is full of competition and, compare and despair. And so when we look at each other's work, it could be very triggering. And so I constantly am doing, preparing people for that and saying, as you're watching other people, look for the gift, because everyone is always giving a gift in something that they're sharing. And if you start getting triggered, find something to love. Just find something to love. And I'm curious if I had done that when you were like this in the screen. But I did love it. I loved it in one way, but I didn't, because I loved it because it was very artistic and I appreciated that. But I didn't allow myself to completely love it. And I think there was something in my head like, oh no, but we're supposed to be in the center here. Like,
so from a Jungian perspective, the opposites always coexist. So if you love, you hate, they're on the same continuum. I think that energetically, because every archetype is bipolar, meaning it has a light side and a dark side.
Well,
so what I want to say is, for a sharing circle and a learning community like you have with Hip Harp Academy, or even what happens in my embodiment circle, it is an appropriate relational guideline that you offer an affirming response, that you speak to the gift that you're receiving. Mm-hmm. From a psychological analytic point of view, if something really torqued you and just really activated you in a negative way, that's information about something in your own psyche that needs your attention. Mm-hmm. So you take that to your analyst. You don't bring that into your learning community and put it out there on somebody else and, make it their problem. You deal with that. So I think we always have to remember that being present to oneself on all of those dimensions, I believe and have observed over the decades, is actually what then will allow one to show up in an appropriate but yet authentic way in a particular setting.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because there's so much that I'm thinking about that I want to kind of reflect. And I'm thinking about the different communities that I'm in, working with different coaches, there's a different set of things that we're working with. And when I'm in the academy, each quarter, we're looking at art through and performance through a different lens. And so I'm constantly, if I'm in conversation with somebody, thinking about what is the context of this conversation. Like if I were having a conversation with somebody in a coaching situation where they just wanted my advice, I might say XYZ. But if I'm in a spiritual conversation with them, I'm not going to offer I want to keep it within the context of what we're doing. Unless we decide to switch it. And it's making me think about music as well. There's genres or there's styles, and you would play within the style that you're in unless you have an agreement that you're going to be switching styles.
Right. And so this is where persona, again, from a Jungian point of view, the persona is the psychic structure that mediates between the ego and the outside collective that you're in. So there are different personas or roles that are appropriate in different settings. And so just like you just said, if you are in the role of a spiritual friend or a fellow 12-stepper, then your response that's appropriate is one thing. Whereas if you are in the role of teacher or coach or educator, that's a different role. And so what we want ultimately is to be able to come into that role, that specific moment, with all of our presence on board toward that end in that moment. It doesn't mean there might be other things going on inside of us that are incongruent for that particular role and moment in time, meaning we're a multiplicity of voices, we're multifaceted. But presence, what makes the difference is, does the response in that particular moment and role mean that you're 100% present to yourself and you are speaking from the roots of yourself, even though the roots may be this wide, let's just say that's all we can see on the screen, but you're just speaking to one little tiny point, but it's still authentic to your experience. That's a very different experience, that presence, than if you're saying something right because that's what you've learned you should say, which is what a lot of personas do. I'm doing this because it's what I should do, what I've learned I should say. This is the proper response.
I think that's why I wanted to create a suite in which whatever was proper was so tiny that it was easy to learn. I mean, like when we see a piece of music, we think that that's proper. I'm really interested in this, what you're bringing out about presence. I'm thinking about the academy, and I'm thinking that the intention of the academy, Hip Harp Academy, is discovery and self-expression. Whereas if someone comes to me for coaching and they want performance coaching and then they're like, I don't feel like I'm physically self-expressed, I'm going to work with them in a completely different way. And it might be scary to me because I'm going to say stuff that might trigger you, but we have the agreement ahead of time. That's where we're going and that's what we're going to do. And if it gets too triggering, then we'll step out for a minute.
Yeah.
But you're also making me think, so I'm now living really one of my goals in the last 10 years was to be living in these they're not three worlds, but they're like the three parts of my life. The composing publishing, which is Gesundheit. Living these three worlds, the composing publishing world in which I am creating all the music that I created for myself to be self-expressed, now making it available for other people and then getting to see them express it, which is very exciting. Then being the performer and then also being the coach. And I've been trying to balance these and get these all working at once because I think there's a beingness that I get to be that I wanted to be as a kid, which was the Leonard Bernstein beingness, the person, say, Gesundheit, the Leonard Bernstein beingness. And I think many teachers are this, that you are the mentor, opening up the world of music for people. You are the performer, performing in the center of it. And you are also the creator, creating it. This is the world that I always wanted to be. And it reminds me a little bit, it is not a perfect metaphor. Gesundheit. So and you can mute, if you want, you can.
Thank you.
It's a cost switcher. It's okay. So this is not a perfect metaphor, but I'm obsessed with Lepidoptera. metamorphosis of what we call butterflies, and every part of it. And I'm not going to go into detail right now, although trust me, I could. But one of the things that I learned recently that's very interesting is that, the body of the caterpillar is one thing. I mean, it's a big mush. It might not be. But when the butterfly, the imago, emerges, its body is in three parts. I'm not saying that's relevant in any way, but it was really meaningful for me because my whole life I've been trying to convince everybody that it's okay, that being these three things is one thing. Okay, but that's kind of a digression. Not even kind, it is. The point is, presence in each of these is different. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say. The experience of getting present, it does require that I don't have to think about what I'm doing, right? If I'm thinking about the technical, what notes am I playing, I'm not really present, right?
I mean, the way I'm going to answer that question is that Jung says that the work of alchemy, which was it is considered a philosophy, but it was acted out in medieval times as kind of a chemical experiment. He says that alchemy is a metaphor for the individuation process. And this is what I work with in spirals 2 and 3 of the embodiment circle. But he says that the alchemist had undifferentiated psychological functions. And the four psychological functions Jung identified are thinking, feeling, intuition, and sensation. So any of you who've taken the Myers-Briggs test or any of those kinds of tests, Jung says that the differentiation of those functions is actually a phenomenon of the modern psyche. That the alchemists, the medieval alchemists, they were not differentiated. They were all working together simultaneously. And so there is a way where the presence that we're talking about is, as you're describing, all four of those are online simultaneously. So there may be thinking going on, but it isn't like we're aware we're thinking. It's like it's all happening simultaneously, and we are in the experience of the moment. And presence is different in every situation. My presence here with you is different moment to moment. It changes because what's going on inside of me changes moment to moment. And so this is part of the importance of being aware of what's happening in your body and developing that muscle where you're always aware, even when you're doing all kinds of other things, that there's an awareness.
You just answered for me something that I've had difficulty answering other people. So I've never been able to memorize music, and I don't read music well. And yet, if you see me on stage with a symphony orchestra, you would see me play a whole show without any music, and it's not difficult because there's a map in my head, and it's not a map of the individual notes, but it's a map of what's happening and what's the little universe of stuff I'm using. I mean, if it's a melody and I don't know where this fit, but it just made, as you were speaking, I was thinking, oh, somehow there's a map somewhere that allows me to be present with certain things. And then there's a perfectionistic mind that doesn't allow me to be present. For example, I can play this music, no problem. But I still, every time I have to do something with social media, it's like, wait a second, and here's this thing, and I have to copy that thing from last time, and I have to, but like, there's really no sense of presence unless I'm live. And then I'm thinking, well, there's probably some technical problem like you just experienced I'm thinking I'm being expressive and I'm not. So I'm constantly worried about that. And that's one of the reasons I freaking love being on stage with real people I can see. I wasn't here last week because I was doing a live radio show. And there was a studio audience, and it was just so to see, to hear, to smell, it's just different. Their presence became my presence. And I know that will happen also in every show that I do. And I do remember being in theaters that were so large, they had so many lights that I couldn't see the front row, and without that contact, I wasn't able to be present. And yet, last week I did an interview with on Neon Jazz, and the guy, my interviewer, wasn't able to be on screen, and he was just on the phone. And when I went back to look at my part of the video, I was so much more expressed because he wasn't there. And so I'm just looking at myself, and it was like, wow, why am I? And I just noticed I just did it with you. I think it's because I'm looking at you. Mm-hmm. And when you're not there, I'm more kind of, I don't know, talking with my body. I think a whole bunch of contradictory things.
Yeah, I'm aware of our time, and we're going to have to stop here in a couple of minutes. But I mean, one of the things I want to say that the biggest takeaway for me today is that presence is multifaceted, and presence is not something that happens in a vacuum. I'm thinking about Annie Murphy Paul's book, Thinking with the Body. The Extended Mind, Thinking Beyond the Brain. The first section in her book is Thinking with the Body. She's a science writer. I think I've mentioned her before. Yeah. She's a science writer who's gathered research about how thinking is more than just like brain chemistry. And so in the Thinking with Body section, she talks about thinking with sensation, thinking with gesture, and thinking with movement. So what you're aware of is that if there isn't someone else there, that you are actually engaged in more gesture and movement. That's a part of your thinking process. It's how you're expressing. It's how the meaning I'm making of it now. But what I think I want to leave us with as a pause, because we can definitely continue this conversation however it evolves, is that presence is multifaceted. And what really matters is that we give ourselves permission to be present with whatever it is that has the strongest energy. So, when I said, wow, I'm kind of looking with your harp on your left shoulder, or you said, no, I'm looking at that light, or, you're not centered, then we are being present, because what we're doing is we're showing up and saying, hey, this is where my energy is. This is what's pulling my attention. This is where my focus is. And yeah, there are situations we are all in where we have to say, okay, that's that, but I've got to stay over here right now. And the key to staying present is to know what's going on in the background versus pretending it isn't there, or disconnecting from it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I really appreciate, like, in a relationship, that you said what you said. You're situs inversus right now. So that you weren't preoccupied. So what I'm hearing is, what I'm getting, my big takeaway is, in terms of preparing for my concert and also just sharing, is actually enjoying the presence that each thing gives me. Mm-hmm. Enjoying the presence that the vision music gives me, enjoying the presence that the Zoom audience gives me, and also in preparation for the concert, creating maps on every level that will support me in being present. And now that I said to you what I said about gesture, it also means when I practicing with my body in new ways. Mm-hmm. Practicing with, I don't even know yet. I had an idea, and I'll just go practice with it and play with it and see what it is, so that when I'm on that stage, I'm bringing not just what I get from the audience and the connection that I love with the audience, but a new connection with myself and my instrument that I'm getting alone in my studio. And then when I can bring those together, there's an even more powerful connection.
Absolutely, because it's like bringing all circuits online, or all cylinders.
Wow.
The more circuits that are connected within us, within our own experience, within our own experiential self, then the more power, more light we're going to be sharing.
And that's creative resonance. That is creative resonance. And that
only happens with presence.
Okay. Wow. I'm excited. The year just got much better.
Okay.
Kathleen, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who takes part in this. Those of you who write in while we're speaking, those of you who write lovely things to us afterwards, and those of us who discover us in our past, because we are now on the podcast platforms, and each week that we are here, we're releasing both a live episode and one of the episodes from the past. And the weeks that we're not here, we release one of the episodes from the past. So they will converge at some point. And I'm so glad that you are converging with us. And Kathleen, thank you so much